First of all, so many of these companies simply are not worth buying. I have valued hundreds of companies in Ukraine for different purposes, international audits with big four firms, or for investment or restructuring, or for debt financing, or for privatization, for many reasons. And so many of these companies, especially the industrial companies, manufacturing companies, they are using very old technology, sometimes 60, 70 years old technology. Ukrainian industrial capacity is way above the national average, the world average, in how much energy it consumes per unit of output, whether you measure that as energy consumption in all forms per unit of GDP, or energy consumption at a particular chemical factory, steel mill, in terms of a ton of product produced, or in terms of as a percentage of revenue. So they're very inefficient in that sense. This is why Ukraine is kind of locked into a position where they primarily produce low value-added products, whether it's in the metallurgical sector, the manufacturing sector, agriculture. Okay, you can sell bulk wheat and corn, but that's the lowest stage of value added. Now, in order to break out of this, Ukraine is just full of smart people. Everybody knows that. But to break out of that cycle, you have to have investment, and investment on a very large scale. And you have to have a legal system that will protect investments, protect ownership. And Ukraine doesn't do very well on the legal side of the ledger in terms of protecting investments, protecting minority shareholder rights. This has always been a problem. What often happens is a company will be purchased and then just cannibalized, liquidated by the owner. And yes, you mentioned that word oligarch. That word has taken on a bit of a pejorative meaning nowadays. Oligarchy simply means that in an economic and political sense, you have a relatively small number of individuals or entities that effectively control most of the political and economic power of a nation. But here's something that almost never gets focused on enough. Where did these oligarchs come from? Okay, these guys weren't born wealthy. They didn't inherit wealth from their parents like the Walmart family. They didn't just parachute in from the sky. All of these oligarchs were Ukrainian citizens, and they were all, most of them, if not all of them, were made wealthy by the privatization process itself. Okay, these were smart people, ambitious people, well-connected people, and they tended to be the individuals, and later their holding companies that would buy these share packages, buy these companies. And because the privatization process was never sufficiently, it's getting better, it's getting much better, but historically it was completely opaque. To whom they would sell and how they would sell and the prices they would sell. This would often be determined in advance, and nobody really could transparently see what is going on in there. So the privatization system itself created all of these oligarchs, and if you look at who they are primarily their wealth is primarily based in the energy and industrial sector, and they didn't build those power stations, they didn't build those oblenergos, these energy distribution stations, for example. They didn't build the steel mills. They purchased them from the government, and for lots and lots of reasons, including economic reasons, they purchase them at very low prices. So that's kind of how we got where we are today. Now, in defense of some of these companies, individuals, they have made extremely large investments, cumulatively into a lot of these sectors, but especially in metallurgy and manufacturing. They have made large investments. But, you know, if you're a Ukrainian citizen who has political and economic wealth and power, it's easier for you, it's less risky, the risk profile for you to make, for example, a $100 million investment in a steel mill, which is a relatively small number for a steel mill. But to make that investment, it's less risky for you than it would be for a foreign company, because the foreign company doesn't have the kind of influence politically that you do. And so in that sense, the political process, the judicial process becomes an exorbitantly high risk factor for, say, a foreign company, but not necessarily for a well-established Ukrainian company.